Are you ready? The Pete Seeger song goes, one pair of hands can't tear a prison down. Two pairs of hands can't tear a prison down. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come around. We'll see that day come around. Here's how it goes. One pair of hands can't tear a prison down. Two pairs of hands can't tear a prison down. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Okay, we'll try it one more time. We'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just one voice can shout to make them hear. Just two voices. Just two voices can shout to make them hear. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just one person can't break the color bond. One person can't break the color bond. Just two people can break the color bond. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. One pair of eyes can't see the way ahead. One pair of eyes can't see the way ahead. Two pairs of eyes can't see the way ahead. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. One pair of hands can't build the bridge to peace. Now let's see everybody sing this time. One pair of hands can't build the bridge to peace. Two pairs of hands can't build the bridge to peace. 2 and 2 and 50. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Yes, if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round.
Thank you, Peter. Can people hear me in the back now?
Yeah. Yes.
Class came to order.
Oh, I thought it was YouTube. Okay.
Wait, go ahead. Let me do the break. Yeah, we played it, bring back. I'm sorry. Good evening and welcome. My name is Suzanne Kaltwasser and I am the Salem Speaks Up coordinator. And I'm so glad to see so many of you came out on a cold and rainy night. You never know who's going to show up, and we have some really diverse experiences. This is our 27th year of doing Salem Speaks Up. We began in 1992 when I was less gray. And Rose Lewis was the instigator of this event, and unfortunately she passed away this past spring. And part of what we want to do tonight is remember Rose, and also to continue her legacy in the Salem Speaks Up. And over here to the side is a memory table for Rose, and there's actually Rose speaking about Salem Speaks Up and Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equity that she started. And at the break, I would hope that anybody who knew Rose would go there and write a memory, just something that you remember about her, or if you don't know Rose, maybe a thank you for creating such events like Salem Speaks Up and many, many other organizations. And then what we're going to do with those memories is we're going to put them in that book and present it to her children. So please do that. And if you want to, like I said, there's a video there that you can actually listen to for her for a few minutes. We'll do that at the break. But anyway, thank you for all the people from different organizations and different governing bodies here. Now, somebody was supposed to give me a cheat sheet, but I do recognize some faces and I want to acknowledge them. And I do recognize that we have in the audience some city councilors, at least one city councilor. We have Chris Hoy from Ward 6, Salem City Council. And we have Salem City Manager, Steve Powers. We have the Chief of Police, Jerry Moore. And we have our Marion County Clerk, Bill Burgess. Now, help me, who have I forgotten? Nobody, is anybody else famous?
Anybody from Mississippi? Yeah, I'm famous, I'm the only one here.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome. And how many people here, is this your first time to a Salem Speaks Up? Wow, good, good, that's so good. Well, there's a program, obviously, that we handed out at the door. If you had one, you'll know that the first 45 minutes or so of our program is kind of scheduled to do things like I'm doing now, and we're going to have a panel presentation. We're going to take a break. And then at 8 o'clock, we're going to do the actual speak up part for at least an hour, where people from the audience can come forward and speak from their heart about their personal experiences. We're asking those people that are from organizations not to give a plug for your organization during that hour unless we end up with time near the end. But if you have a story about Rose, or if you have an experience about something, then do please come up. All right, so is the mayor here yet? I hope he's not lost. Because last Monday at the city council meeting, he announced Salem Speaks Up, and he said it was going to be at the Methodist Church, because that's where we often meet. And I corrected him, but he says, am I going to be standing out in front of the Methodist Church in the rain by myself, wondering where all you are? And I'm afraid that might have happened, but anyway. We'll go forward then, like I said, with a tribute to Rose Lewis. I first met Rose through League of Women Voters in Marion Polk County back in probably 1986, 87. And she was one of the first people that came up to me and spoke to me and became my friend. And as time went on, she not only became my friend, but she became my mentor. And I really owe a great deal to Rose, who never lectured, never gave, now let me tell you something kind of advice. She always showed her tutoring through herself as a role model. She always was very gentle and would just show you through her personality and how she dealt with people and how she organized things, how a true leader operates. And so I owe her a debt of gratitude for that experience. I went on to be the vice president of League of Women Voters while she was the president. And that's during that time then is when she did a study of human rights in Salem and interviewed many people of color and came up with the notion that we needed to do something more public. And the next year, when I was president and she was past president, we started Salem Speaks Up together. And so she's been a true inspiration to me. And there's several people here tonight that we've asked to come up and just say a couple of words, their memories of Rose. And so the first person I have here is Anna Olivia, who is with the Salem Kaiser Coalition of Equality.
I want to bring my husband. Yes, I wasn't sure. Yes. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Our story is very special. I'm sure everybody's is. But 20 years ago, when we started the Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality, people like Rose and her friends, Stella Jean and others that have passed on, they came up alongside of this group of people of color and said, how can we help? And they promoted us and helped us how, with structure and how to get along and all kinds of just wonderful things. And Rose has been with us and supported us with us and supported us for the last 20 years without stopping. And she gave us an interview last year, and we've got it on our website. We wanted to let you know about that. It's a long interview, and it was really neat. I was asking her about, her life and how she got started in working for civil rights and different things. Really wonderful. Then she passed, and I was like, wow, I'm so glad we have that video. So my husband had a lot of relationship with Rose, so go ahead and say.
Yeah, I know Rose Lewis. My name is Eduardo Angulo. I'm one of the co-founders of the Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality. But she co-founded a group called 100 Good People. Mm-hmm. Some of you are not old enough to remember that group, but it was a group of white retirees that came along the NAACP leadership and the Latino leadership, and they were instrumental in forming the Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality. And it was back then in the mid-90s, after Oregonians passed the Measure 11, when we started seeing the effects of it immediately with the kids of color in our community. And obviously the issues that had to do with racial profiling at the time and treatment of people of color in Salem Kaiser. But for Rose, I can say that she was a spiritual leader, and she was the conscience of this city. She truly was. Because I think Susan said it right. She was not this aggressive or outspoken person. She was very quiet, very loving, very supportive. You will never hear her saying anything negative about anyone. Okay. And through all that, she mastered to get people together. Okay. And I remember it took us 4 years to create the Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality. The YWCA, we used to meet at this tiny room. That was the only room that they had available. It was so hot in there. And all these elders, and there's one of the founders here looking at us right here. You know who that is?
I'm trying to see.
Right here. Right here.
Lorraine.
Lorraine Stewart.
Lorraine, yeah, right. Yeah.
One of the founders of 100 People.
Yeah.
And it was just outrageous. If some of you remember Johnny Lake, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you remember Jim Ramsey the third. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you remember T.W. Jackson. You know what I'm talking about. It's this humongous black man meeting with this very tiny white-haired red Tyrese. And it was a show. But it was a show of caring and love and really coming together to integrate this city. And in the best of ways, with the most of love. And all that was because we had always in the room Rose Lewis. He's a friend that we surely miss and that our city needs still.
And I know time is going over. I'll just mention one thing. It was so incredible that she had this dream in the 90s, as you said, for the Speak Up. Because I just remember her saying, you know, people have no place to speak. They have no place to be heard. Their pain and different things that have happened to them, there's nobody listening, and they need to be heard. And when we went to those Speak Ups back then, they were very intense, and it was just very different. They were so intense, and I remember the first ones that I had never been in that experience. Anyway, thank you guys very much.
Now, the mayor has arrived, but we're going to move our schedule along and get back to you, if that's okay. The next person that would like to have come up and speak is Benny Williams from NAACP. I'm sorry? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Benny Williams. I'm the president of the Salem Kaiser branch of the NAACP. You know, I met Rose Lewis probably about 12 years ago, and she was, from the time I met her to the time I last seen her, the same, committed to being fair, to loving and caring about all of us. You know, the Bible tells us that when Jesus says the most important person there is to be called a friend. And I will tell you this, Rose was a friend. Her and Dick were quite the couple. Where if one was, you found the other. And in finding both of them, you found two people that loved, cared, and were concerned about us improving as a community, as a city, as associates and friends. And I come to say tonight, she was a lifelong member of the NAACP. And she was one that, whether we're in session as far as having a general membership meeting, or we've had functions or Freedom Fund banquets or other occasions where we come together, she was right there and always wanted to make sure that all of us were in the same boat, irregardless of color, nationality, political persuasions, or otherwise. And that's the testimony that we should be left with in understanding how we can live a life without being famous, but being remembered for caring. You know, we're in some difficult times right now, and I'm going to leave it on this note. As difficult times as we're in right now, these are times that, as others, we can get through. But the only time we get through these things is when we get through them together. And so I would encourage us, as we have Speak Up tonight, to speak up to those issues that any one of us are facing that's discriminatory, that's a reflection of racism. Those things is what continues to tear our communities, our society apart. And the more we chip away at removing those kinds of issues, The more we come together as a community, as a city, as a state, we become the beacon for any and every place else that wants to understand that we can be successful. We can not simply get along and not tolerate. I hate to hear people talk about tolerating anything. We can have differences of opinion, but we also have a commonality. And so if we end up understanding that there's more that holds us together than creates differences to push us apart, we can overcome these difficult times that we're in right now. And that was what Rose and Dick Lewis lives were all about, was overcoming and discarding those that hate, those that have disrespect, but saying that, listen, we can do better than this. So I commend her for her life, and she'll be remembered because of the life that she led. Thanks.
Okay, Bruce Stock.
Well, my name's Bruce Stock. I'm connected to Salem Fellowship of Reconciliation, Oregonians for Alternative to Death Penalty, and Alternative to Violence Project. All organizations that Rose was involved in and supported. There we go. So, I got connected to Rose and Dick Lewis first by going down on my lunch hour on Wednesdays, as I'm a conscientious objector, to the peace vigil that was taking place every Wednesday at Liberty and Chemeketa Streets. We call that Polly's Corner now, and we meet the first Wednesday of every month. So eventually I got asked to start attending the Salem Fellowship of Reconciliation programs. There I met Rose and Dick Lewis. Rose would not let anybody sit on the sidelines if you showed up. So she got me involved in the Fellowship of Reconciliation, and she also got me involved in Alternatives to Violence Project. And I consider her a mentor, helping me along the path, become a facilitator. Eventually one day, they wanted to step back, and they showed up at the house. I was recovering from surgery, and so Rose and Dick said, we're going to step back, and we want you to start coordinating AVP. So I've been doing that. Two things about Rose and Dick. They were both really creative individuals. And at the Alternatives to Violence Project workshops at the Oregon State Penitentiary, Rose started what was called a reunion. So anybody who had taken any level of AVP, whether you're in the community or in the penitentiary, we would have these reunions, and they were planned by the inside facilitators. It was a great way to stay connected. And one of the other things that Rose was really important to her in her life was racism. That was, she worked tirelessly over that issue. And one of the things that she did just before she passed was about a year of films that she would show on racism at the Friends Meeting House. So I miss Rose and Dick, their creativity, their peace and justice work, and consider them friends.
And our final tribute is going to be by Bill Burgess, who is representing both himself and his wife Cindy, who worked with Rose through League of Women Voters.
What's what? Okay. Well, thank you, and thank the League and all for inviting us here today. I remember when we had these even in the Al Laux Center, and we usually had a lot more kids. Looks like our community has matured. And actually, I think it really has for the issues that we first started getting together over. And of course, we always have a long way to go, but We're committed to making our community as strong and resilient and fair and supportive of everybody as possible. And we've got a lot of folks in this room that have been dedicated to that for a long time, and certainly Rose was. Now, my wife had written something, and she was supposed to be the one presenting, but she's in Cody, Wyoming right now, taking care of our little grandchild who was born about 5 weeks early and then ended up 8 weeks in the NICU, but now is doing well, and my daughter needed a little bit of help for a while. Otherwise, she would be here for this. And so I'll go ahead and read what she wrote. This is something that she did actually when we had a memorial for Rose at her house. In Cindy's words now. When Rose adopted her Guatemalan daughters, they were subjected to discrimination at school. Rose got fired up. She served several years on the Salem Human Rights and Relations Committee and maybe the Police Citizens Review Board, but not sure about that. She also came up with the idea of rainbow gatherings at her home on Christmas time and Easter. She invited people of different races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and abilities. She also invited public officials. At that time in the early 90s, Bill, this guy here, was on the Salem City Council and is over 20% African American. So my family was invited, or our family was invited, she says. We then went to Rose and Dick's home every year that they were in the country for 24 years. We met so many interesting people. Our children loved to go there where Rose and Dick were so tolerant of non-typical children. Our girls loved the baby chicks and pheasants, the goats, and giving younger kids goat rides. And the time a lamb was brought into the house for them to pet because it was raining outside. They loved the Easter egg hunts in which the children were not allowed to keep the eggs and candy, but rather they then hid the candy for the adults to find, which the kids enjoyed more than finding them themselves. They hid them better too. A lesson was being learned, as was Rose's style. Rose's vision was that other people would replicate what she was doing by having rainbow gatherings in their houses. We were so thankful to have a place our children were welcomed. Our daughters viewed Rose and Dick and Anna and Marta as family. I'll never forget the speech Rose made as outgoing League of Women Voters Marion-Pocahontas County president. She was a very thrifty person. She even washed styrofoam cups for reuse. I'm fairly certain most of her clothing she either had a long time or bought secondhand. She was so appalled at how many billions of dollars women spend on makeup and haircuts per year and believed there was a better, less vain use of their money. She suggested we all quit using makeup and grow our hair long in the winter for warmth and short in the summer to keep cool like she did. Another issue Rose brought up several times was that we ought to have potlucks for our membership and recruitment lunches, talking about the League of Women Voters here, in our annual meetings rather than spending money on restaurants or catered meals. Might not be so good for economic development, but that's good thrifty. Who will forget the awesome Aunties performances with the political songs Rose wrote to familiar tunes? Not those of us she roped into singing with her, even if we couldn't sing well. Who will forget the song about health care, where at the end, Rose turned around to display a bare plastic bottom. She thought we all ought to have more fun, that every meeting needn't be so serious. Of course, Rose and Dick went to China more than once to teach, as well as other countries such as Japan with the American Friends Service Committee. They were members of the Fellowship of Reconciliation and the United Nations Association. Rose and Dick went into the prisons to teach nonviolent communication. They received the Oregon PeaceWorks yearly award a few years back, and at the time Rose was somewhat discouraged that they had worked all their lives for peace, but still the world did not seem willing or able to reach that ideal. But we must say that Rose never gave up. We had a rainbow celebration just a few weeks, it seems like, before she passed away, and she worked hard up to the end. And my wife says, and there's so much more. Cindy Burgess. So, thank you.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, one of the reasons why we take time to honor Rose is not only because we love her, but because she should be a role model to all of us in this community, to see how much one person with a good heart and the willingness to give of herself has done to make Salem a better place for us to all coexist together. The mayor has issued a proclamation, and if you want to come forward, Mayor Chuck Bennett.
Well, good evening. I'm really honored to be here. I've done this for a number of years. Miss Rose not being with us, this is a real tribute to Rose, I think, that we're all meeting here again tonight, that we'll continue to meet. I would hope well into the future that there'll be a new generation of us that will come together to celebrate this day. Each year, the mayor issues a proclamation. I want to, before I start, I want to acknowledge my colleague Chris Hoy, who's president of the City Council, is here, as well as some other city folks. I hope you'll take some time, talk with the chief, the city manager, Kelly over at the Human Rights Table. The city has been very involved in this event for a number of years. So I issued a proclamation, whereas December 10th, 2019 marks the 71st anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the General Assembly of the United Nations, and whereas the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief, and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. Whereas as mayor and as a member of this community, I share in the community's concern as we see our fellow human beings suffer inequity and discrimination, and we work alongside each of you in standing up against bigotry and taking action in support of human rights. And whereas the city of Salem, by definition, the city of peace, supports freedom for all its people and recognizes the need to address issues of racism, poverty, homelessness, discrimination based on religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and more, while knowing that in our global society, no person is free until all persons are free. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor of the City of Salem, Oregon, do hereby proclaim December 10th, 2019 as Human Rights Day in Salem, and urge all the community to respect this day as a stepping stone to our equity and inclusion for all people in our city and in the world. Dated this 9th day of December 2019. So I hope you'll join me in celebrating Human Rights Day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The theme of tonight's program is welcoming our neighbors. We are a very diverse community, and yet we all share the same geography and the same aspirations and needs. And one of the things that we wanted to do tonight was recognize a really wonderful example of how people are creating a welcoming experience for new people to our community. And there are many organizations that are doing that, but tonight we're asked the Salem Refugee Program to do a little panel presentation for us and welcome two people, right, from out of our community, and talk a little bit about their experiences and their background and so forth. So Jenny, if you want to come forward and introduce our guests.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Barishoff, and I am the program director with Salem for Refugees. And I never had heard of Rose Lewis, but I'm so glad that we're here tonight because I really do feel like we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who've been doing a lot of good work in Salem for many, many years. And the work that you guys have all been doing is what has made Salem as welcoming as it is. And so we've invited two people who are new neighbors in Salem. Lumona Mbama is originally, his family was from the Democratic Republic of Congo and fled to Tanzania and lived in a refugee camp there for about 20 years, I think, and came to Salem almost 2 years ago. And then Divine Irambona is originally from Burundi and her family also fled to a refugee camp in Tanzania. And I don't think the same camp though. And she came to Portland actually about 12 years ago. She was 12 years old. And then we got her, Salem got her. She actually graduated from Western Oregon and started on a mentor team with Salem for Refugees, welcoming another family, another refugee family. And then we sort of talked her into living in Salem. So she's now living and working here. So I just thought very simply that Lumona and Divine could speak to two really simple questions. One is, how has Salem done a good job of welcoming you? What has Salem done that has made you feel welcomed here in our community? And I think Lumona wants to start. He's prepared his remarks.
Hi guys. Hi. My name is Lumona and I go to school for a living. And Salem has made me feel like they have welcomed me a lot, for having a group called Salem for Refugees. They helped me teach the law and how things are done here in the US. Yes. And also Salem community could help us find homes, because many people here are they have 11 children and they live in 4 bedrooms. So yeah, they could help us find at least 6 bedrooms. That would help a lot. Yes.
So Lumona answered the first and second question. Thank you, Lumona. Divine, did you want to address? Yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I just hold it. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the first question is, how has the Salem community welcomed you?
For me, Salem for Refugee has been nothing but a blessing to me. When my family and I first came to United States, we arrived in Beaverton area, and we didn't have anybody really we only had one person who just recently passed away who welcomed us, and besides that, we didn't have much. And so, but Salem for Refugee has it's, I don't even know how to explain it, but because I just have like a strong passion for it. The amount of people that are just involved with the refugees, it's just amazing. Sorry, I'm gonna be emotional now. Sorry, I meant to be emotional. But no, Salem for Refugee definitely has made a huge impact in a lot of people's lives. Whenever, like, I'm currently involved with, helping the refugees that are coming to to Salem area, and there's always a team that welcomes new refugees that are coming here, and not a single person there's also other families from refugee camp that just comes here, and whenever a new family arrives, there's food already prepared for them. There's clothes. There's a room to stay. It's just amazing how you just come in and it's like everything is prepared for you. And I didn't have that when my family and I, we didn't have that when we first came. I wish that we had that. Just not too long ago, there's a new family that just came, and just on Sunday, I saw them just being involved and just feeling comfortable, they felt like they're home, just being surrounded by such amazing people that loves them, and it was amazing. So I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I know many of you actually have been involved with mentor teams through Salem for Refugees, and I don't know if all of you know, but there are more than 300 refugees who've come to live here in Salem in the last 4 years, which is pretty incredible. And so the second question, and Lumona, you can pass, or if you had more to say. The second question is, what can Salem as a community do better to welcome refugees, or new neighbors as we call them?
I already answered.
Yeah, that's all right.
We need more teams. We need more people to get involved in just helping these new refugees. We are for example, my team that I work with, one of the family, I have my own life too that I have to deal with, and then they're also doing other things. So sometimes we don't have somebody to go and pick up the family, or some kind of emergency thing happens, and we're like, whoa, I can't leave work, or I'm out of town, and it's not too long ago, one of the parents that I help with, I assist. He got into ER, and he tried to contact me, and I was at work, and I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out, and I tried to call everybody that was in my team. They're like, oh, I can't, I'm not here, and just not having people to be, that could be there to rely on these new families coming. It's really hard. Another thing is housings. They are really, really hard to find houses for big families. So that's something that we definitely need, because and also jobs, finding jobs. That's another thing that's really hard. Most of the refugees families that comes here, they don't speak English, they don't have any education, and for those who do have education, their degree is, it's not really, it doesn't count here in America. So to find jobs that, for them, it's really, really hard. I have the mom that I'm helping for just recently found a job after living here for a year and a half, She just recently got a job because we tried everything we could and just really hard. You should see her face. She's so happy. She's so grateful. It's not the best job, but she's definitely very grateful. So jobs, housings, yeah.
This wasn't one of the questions, but I asked you in the car, so I'll ask it now publicly. Have either of you guys had any experiences with discrimination since you've moved to Salem?
Yes, I felt very welcome here because most people are friendly and I haven't seen any discrimination for me. Yes.
Well, for me, I did when I first came to United States. I was told that I'd go back to Africa, you smell bad. I remember just going in the bathroom, really eating in the bathroom, and then no kids wanted to talk to me. And then every time my brother and I were just trying to communicate in our language, there were just kids just whispering. And I remember telling my my brothers, like, just don't talk. Maybe they will like us if we don't talk, and that's not okay. That's not okay. We should be free to talk in our language. But ever since I moved to Salem in area and just helping the families and just having experienced that discrimination, and I've been encouraging the community, just get to know these refugees. They've already suffered so many times. They've faced a lot of things that no human beings deserves to face. And just don't know them by their title, refugee kids or refugee families, but get to know their unique talents. So having, I don't know if this is part of the question, but we do have a choir called Uhuru Youth Choir, which Uhuru Youth Choir, Uhuru stands for freedom. So that has been definitely very welcoming to the community. And I asked one of the girls if she feels welcomed. Like we had a little talk with these youth groups, kids from a high school. I can't remember the name of the high school. And I asked her, like, this girl, she's a refugee. I asked her, how do you, because I was invited to talk, to share my story. And I invited her because I wanted her to get to know other race, other kids, American kids, and just be confident. And so she went and she was talking and she answered every question that of course I was translating for her, and she was happy. And then after we left, I asked her, how did you feel? Did you feel welcomed? And she's like, yes, I felt really, really welcomed. And so, yeah, so thanks to Salem for Refugees, honestly, I see, compared to my experience with the new kids coming here, I feel there's definitely like a better community and just kids accepting the kids.
Yeah, so again, Salem for Refugees is it's a network of volunteers and resources. It's really your network. It's a network of the Salem community. And I just, again, want to say that if there is a good welcome in Salem, and I think there is, it's because of the work you guys have been doing for so many years here. And I just want to thank you guys.
These cords are going to get us. Thank you. Well, you can see why we wanted to have these young people here tonight. But it was mentioned earlier that Rose adopted 2 children from Guatemala. And when she adopted them, there wasn't this kind of welcoming environment, and that's what launched her on this path in her life. And it's so nice to see that that's one positive thing that we can say about Salem is we've turned it around when it comes to refugees in our community. And don't you think it would be nice if everybody that came to Salem would feel the warmth and have people that could wrap their arms around them? Because we are all a community and they are all our neighbors, and we need to reach out to people. And one of the reasons why we picked this as a topic was because Sam Skillern of Salem Leadership Foundation was talking at a meeting about the importance of friendship and how many, many problems in people's lives, whether it be racial, color, poverty, homelessness, whatever it is always benefited when people are friendly and befriend you. If you have that network of people in your community that will support you, will reach out to you, then many things, many problems, if they can't be totally solved, at least they're made better. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to emphasize. Well, we're a little past our break, and I know that we've got some delicious food for you. We're going to take 15 minutes, and I'm going to really plead with you to, when you hear Peter's music start up again, rush back to your chairs so that we can get to the actual speak up or people in the group. And as I mentioned before, we have this table here for you to write a little note about Rose. And if you don't have time to do that, then take it back to your seat and you can write it before you leave. Because I really want to have that book filled up. And if you don't know Rose, then maybe you can just make a comment about Salem Speaks Up or about something that you heard here today, because we want to be able to give that to her children and show that the community really appreciates her. So let's take about 15 minutes. The restrooms, as you can see, are back in the corner, and introduce yourself to the people. Let's be neighborly and introduce ourselves to people that we don't already know. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah. That first song we sang was a Pete Seeger song. Believe it or not, this next one, which is called A Simple Song of Freedom, was written by Bonnie Darin. Remember Bonnie Darin? You know,
I'm too young for that.
Now, moving beyond.
Frank Sinatra look-alike that sounded like, that had a great big career, and then kind of went down again, and then he came back in the early 70s with this song. It's called Simple Song of Freedom. Goes like this. The chorus goes like this, so this is what you want to learn. Let's sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like it never done before. Oh, let it fill the air, fill the people everywhere, that we the people there want of war. Okay, let's all try that. Come and sing a simple song of freedom. most of what you read is made of lies. I was thinking one to one, ain't everybody's son. The way to hear the morning rain cries on free. I sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you never sung before. Oh, let it fill the air, fill the people everywhere. Let me the people hear all your road. Now no doubt some folks enjoy the battle. Like presidents, prime ministers, and kings. But let us build them show so we can fight amongst themselves and let the people be honest. Last time, now everybody sing this one. Come and sing a simple song of freedom like you've never sung before. Sing it like you've never sung before. Oh, let it fill the air, fill the people everywhere. We the people here on your board. Oh, let it fill the air, fill the people everywhere. And we the people here on your board. Thank you very much. And now the program continues.
Thank you very, very much, Peter and Alice. I have a few people who've written their cards for tribute to Rose, but a lot of people haven't. So what I think we'll do is we'll send this packet around, and you can write a little something as we're doing our Speak Up. Okay, so the next thing is the real meat and potatoes of why you came, and that is to hear from people from the community. So our moderator for this portion of the meeting is Mindy Merritt, who is the new president of the Salem Kaiser Education Association. Mindy?
Watch your foot. Watch out. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be asked and to be here tonight. My name is Mindy Merritt, and I'm an educator in Salem Kaiser, and I'm elected by our educators to serve as the president for our licensed staff, our licensed educators, counselors, psychologists within Salem Kaiser community. So I'm here tonight, and I have been tasked with the very difficult job of keeping each of you on the task while you're sharing your stories within a 2-minute parameter. And that is going to be very difficult because I know that each one of you have really heartwarming and dear stories, but we want to hear from as many of you as we can. Because we're here tonight on the International Human Rights Day to talk about the importance of coming together and breaking down these barriers and the silos and being neighbors, being kind to one another, and the difference that it makes together. So, this is where I get to call upon you, those of you that have a story that you would like to share. Who would like to go first to share something that has impacted you on this day of International Human Rights Day? And I just want to let you know, if you all have nothing to share, I definitely have things that I can share. But I think those of you in the audience have things to share. Deanna, can I call on you first? I have an amazing educator in the audience who's going to warm us up, and Mary Cruz. I'm going to call on both of them to get us started. These both are amazing individuals.
Hello, my name's Gianna, and real quick, I'm a DACA recipient, and so is Maricruz, and she'll share a little bit more, but DACA has impacted me so much because it gave me the opportunity to go to school, which was something that was not possible my senior year. This is my 5th year of teaching, which is wow beyond my dreams, but I have students right now, sorry, in the same shoes that I was in, who weren't able to qualify for DACA because they were brought up here after the original requirement date, which was 2007. And so they're facing the same problems that I was facing, but without any support. So no jobs, no ability to drive legally, no real hope of a future. And so that's kind of the shoes that we're in. I'm grateful for DACA, very grateful. And it's helped all of my family. My sister is currently in school, which is helping her a lot. We do pay out of pocket, so we don't get scholarships, loans. They're very small because we're not actual citizens. So when DACA expires, my ability to work expires, my ability to drive expires until hopefully I can renew. So that's kind of where I'm at. I know that something will happen, but until then I'm just kind of just living life, I guess.
Thank you.
All right, so my plan wasn't to speak today, but I just decided to speak anyway, even though I'm not very good at public speaking. So my name is Maricruz. I am a DACA recipient, and I'm a teacher. I'm a 3rd and 4th grade teacher. I have a blend, and I teach bilingual classroom in Salem Kaiser. So my family immigrated here when I was 6 years old, and I grew up with my mom always encouraging me, like, do good in school, it's gonna pay off, and this and that, and so that's what I did. And then when it was time for me to apply for colleges, and I wanted to get my driver's license, get a job, that's when I realized that I didn't have that documentation that I needed to do that. So that's when it really hit me hard, and I feel like at the college, I moved around a lot, and so I just moved to Salem my junior year of high school, and so I wasn't comfortable with, the staff and stuff like that, so I didn't open up to them about my situation. But I feel like it's something that is very, something that Salem needs to work on, is getting to know your students very well, so that you're able to help them. And for me, I wasn't able to apply to colleges because, first of all, I was discouraged with my brother's situation when he got denied, and so I didn't see a future of me going to college. But I feel like if there was someone that would have encouraged me or guided me, it would have been a lot easier. And so I feel like that's something that we can do now, because like Diana said, a lot of high school students are going through the same thing now. And also, I heard a lot of things about the refugees program, but I feel like we should create something that's similar to that, but for immigrant communities who are also like refugees, except they don't have the right documents for a lot of different reasons. But I feel like we still deserve the same help, and a lot of them would really appreciate that too. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for both of you as educators. Maricruz, you're amazing, both of you. You teach 3rd grade. Diana, you teach at the high school level. Can you both speak to the students who you see that come into your classrooms and what you see we as neighbors could do to help out? I'll let you just think.
So I currently have students in my classroom who are here in Asylum, or students whose parents are undocumented, and so I feel like I don't have a lot of resources for them. So I don't know if maybe I can get in touch with any of you, or you guys know someone, but I feel like that's something that we also need in our schools, is just being able to provide just resources for students or families, because they really, you can really see what they're going through based on their emotions and actions in the classroom. So, yeah.
For me, so I work at a school where it's primarily, I don't know how to say it, not this color, I just will say it that way. And so to speak up and to say that like you're undocumented is not something that you do because you don't want anybody to know. And so for like the student that told me about that, I had him last year and I had no idea until this year. And so just like I think like Maricruz was saying, it's just regardless of where you came from as an immigrant, it wasn't our choice to come. We were both, she said she was 6 and I was 6 too. The student that was brought here, who's right now a senior, he was also really little. And so, yes, we are trying to provide help for all of our students, but a lot of our undocumented students feel like they can't speak up about it because we're not legal, we're not supposed to be here. And so that's hard. And if the community were to say, like, regardless of your status, you're a human and let's help you, I think that would make things a lot easier and they would want to speak up about it. But right now, like I said, I know there's probably other students, but I don't know of any others because they think that, and again, I'm not, and not that I don't want to share that I'm undocumented, but it just doesn't come up in conversation. Like when I speak to you, I don't say, hi, my name's Gianna, by the way, you know, I'm undocumented, because you don't say to me, hi, my name's, you know, whatever, by the way, I'm a citizen. Like, it doesn't come up in conversation, everyday conversation. So I don't know, it's kind of a hard question to know, like, how do you bring it out into the open without saying, like, that's a bad thing, why did you guys cross illegally? So, yeah.
Thank you. I was ready. All right. If you would like to speak, I'm going to ask for time's sake, if you would just come up and stand by the table, then I will know who to call on next. I thought it was really interesting and important. The theme that was brought forward by both Diana, Maricruz, and also, and I so apologize that I've forgotten your name, Divine, that it is the ideal and the thought that not only are they here supporting others who are working to be a part of our communities, but they're also trying to be a part and function in a space where they may not have the support. And it's so important to remember that as we're working on being together and being kind and reaching out. And it's that we don't always know what someone that we're speaking with or next to is dealing with. Come on up.
So, first, I wanted to say, this is a poll, a question, survey. So how many here believe that healthcare is a human right? So it looks like a strong majority. We did a poll at I'm with Healthcare for All Oregon. My name is Lee Mercer. I live in Silverton. We did a poll in 2014 of voters in Oregon, and it was encouraging to see what we asked, do you believe healthcare is a human right? And 85% of likely Oregon voters believe that healthcare is a human right. So a strong majority. So that's really exciting. I'm not here to talk about healthcare for all Oregon, though we are working toward universal healthcare and have passed legislation, and a task force will be working this year based on a bill we passed last year to create a system in Oregon.
That's
that
really good, because I would have to bump you off the mic if so. So you have to tell your heartfelt story.
Here's my heartfelt story is what I do personally to encourage myself, and I would encourage you to do, to encourage yourself about how exciting the time we are living in vis-a-vis healthcare, is to Google the phrase universal healthcare on your computer and get the search every day. And you will be amazed that there's a revolution brewing in, not just in America finally, but all over the world. Does anybody know what October 12th is 2 days from now? It's Universal Access to Healthcare Day, the United Nations Day. They started in 2012, and it's been 7 years. And when I Google this, every day I get, and they're just about to universal health care and voting it in the Philippines. And this is what they're doing in South Africa. And this is, okay.
This is my job, I'm
Okay,
sorry. I
okay.
get to say, at the end, if we have time, you get to come back.
Okay,
But I'm going to encourage somebody to come up.
okay.
And if
Okay,
you
no,
have
I'm
a
happy if
heartfelt
anybody comes
story-
up.
Well, I get to come in,
Yeah.
I have other facts I
Okay.
get to share.
And also, I haven't emailed into you
Yes.
twice that I'd
I
like
will
you to get back to me.
respond. I will. Thank you so much. So, thank you so much. So, Fred Rogers, who had a neighborhood and actually was well known for what he did in breaking barriers, he said, has a quote of, "The greatest thing that we can do is to help somebody know that they are loved and capable of loving." So I want you to think of someone, and Suzanne said it earlier, the importance of looking into somebody's eyes, whether they're experiencing homelessness, whether they're LGBTQIA+, whether they're new to our community. We don't know what others are experiencing, and it's so important that we can step in and welcome them. And I think that was truly what Rose stood for. And that's why we're here tonight. And it is so important. And I'm really waiting for the next person that's going to come up and share their story, because I know you all have stories to share. Come on up. Come on up.
Let's get this together.
Let's get this together. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
All right,
But
Melvin.
I won't need that. God
Okay.
knows. I got a big mouth. Okay, my name is Melvin Smith. I was born in Mississippi in the early 60s during Jim Crow. The reason I know because my mother was the cook in the cotton field and her mother was the cook in the cotton field. I'm the youngest of 12 children. I'm the only one that didn't have to pick cotton. By the time that I came along, well, Mama had did good and I got a better shot than my brothers and sisters did. This is a different world. This is nothing like I ever, man, I'm around white people that's not trying to kill me. This is so cool, you know. I've seen some of the most horrible things. That's why when they asked me to come here, all I have is horror stories. I mean, and doing it all, I kept smiling, I kept believing in people. And I kept asking to give me a real home. And I found it, man. You guys are the bomb. But, you know, I mean, I am so happy. And I wish I can get, you know, as a coast-to-coast truck driver, 35 years, I got 17 kids. Don't owe a damn a child support, okay? But I have kids all over the United States, and I brought 2 here with me, the youngest 2. And, well, I've been retired now for about a year and a half, and I've just been sitting on the couch and wondering what I was going to do. Well, I got a gift. I like to see people smile. So until you taste my cooking, you will realize what the other side is. Now, in the South is bad. It's really bad. Blacks weren't allowed to go to doctors and dentists. We were only allowed to go to the vet. I can tell you some things. I can tell you one thing. Do you know why they call white people honkies?
No.
Would you like to know why?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to give you this bit of history. Back in those days, back during the 20s and the 30s, well, white people were used to going to the slave quarters, sleeping with any black woman they want. So when it changed, white men didn't want to give that up. So in that time, they had old Model Ts. And the Model Ts had those big round horns and they go honk honk. And so when the white guy would go into the slave quarters or the poor people quarters, he would pull in front of their house and he would honk that horn. Now that black man know he got to send his wife out to this guy or they would all be killed. And so when he pulled up in front of that house and said honk honk, well, that's when the husband would say, well, there goes that honky. And that's where that came from. Okay? Like I said, I don't know horror stories because being black in the state of Mississippi, where I was considered an animal, it's a different world. You know, and I knew there was something out here better. And I found it. I'm a happy dude. I'm an old man now, but I'm still happy. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to come up? Personal story? Okay, wonderful. Hi. Thank you.
My name is Laura Doherty, and I'm going to speak to two different issues they're meaningful to me. One is climate change. I'm with 350 Salem, Oregon. We have a table over there, and we are a climate change organization. And today, in the annual statement from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, she said it's particularly fitting that this year we mark Human Rights Day during the crucial UN conference in Madrid to uphold climate justice. We owe a debt of gratitude to all those millions of children, teenagers, and young adults who have been standing up and speaking out more and more loudly about the crisis facing our planet. She also said the global climate emergency represents perhaps the most profound planet-wide threat to human rights that we have seen since World War II. From the right to life, to health, to food, water, and shelter, to our rights to be free of discrimination, to development and to self-determination, the impacts are already making themselves felt. We have a duty to ensure young people's voices are heard, their future and their lives. And this was her statement today from the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights. The other issue I would like to speak to is a group of young people who are not here tonight because they were at the school board meeting earlier. LUCE, the Salem's Latina youth group, Latinos Unidos Siempre, and they wanted to bring the school board's attention to the issue of the school-to-prison pipeline. This is a really serious human rights violation when children, even very young children, are brought into the criminal justice system instead of being treated as matters of school discipline, social services, disability accommodations, or cultural awareness. This is something that faces many, many children, particularly children of color in our community and in our country. And LUCE has been bringing attention to this in several ways this year. I know that the teachers union also had a program to bring awareness of that within the education system. But LUCE had a forum a few weeks ago on the school to prison pipeline. They traveled to New York and met with a group, a lot of young people from around the country with Bernie Sanders. They're calling on the presidential candidates to come out against the school-to-prison pipeline. One of their young members, Tony Martinez, who wrote a really powerful article that was in Teen Vogue, which you might be surprised, but Teen Vogue offers a platform for progressive young people. It's very interesting that they do, but they do. I've seen many articles come my way that with kids really articulate and, outspoken on various issues that face our society and face them. So Tony's article on the school-to-prison pipeline talked about his own experience of having, been be arrested at the age of 8, and then having later been, in the prison system. And then he related that with information, with data about the impact on young children of color, together, and and then ended with the call to the candidates to end the school-to-prison pipeline. You can read his article. We have a paper over there with the link to the article. It was in a November issue of Teen Vogue online. And also, they had their forum that they had a few weeks ago. There is a podcast on KMU's Community Radio that is based on that forum, and you can, if you go to KMU's and look at their list of programs that are archived in the forum, and then you can look for the title, School to Prison Pipeline, and you can listen, and then the young people speaking out for themselves about their experiences and the impact that it's had on their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. That is so important. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing, Lori. Thank you. And Lori, I appreciate you saying Teen Vogue. I was shocked myself. Actually, how many of you follow Teen Vogue? You laugh, but I'm going to tell you, they are up and coming in staying social for social justice. Have really great articles. Thank you. Go. Oh, I can get that started for you.
My name's Linnell, and this never gets easier. I've been working at as a volunteer at the warming shelters for the last 3 years, and it's changed my heart, my life, my perspectives, my beliefs, and so many things. I used to kind of figure that people who are homeless are probably, alcoholics, drug addicts, criminals, and I'm going to be nice to them, but they've clearly done something wrong. They didn't work hard, they didn't plan well, or they wouldn't be in that situation. And the more that I worked there and the more that I volunteered in the community and had other opportunities to have conversations, and as you get to know people, they trust you more, and the stories start pouring out. I used to think that abuse is really, really rare, and the movies that you see about horrific abuse are just Hollywood. But talking to people, some of the stories you can never unhear it, you can never unsee it. One girl was prostituted by her mom since she was 6 years old because her mom needed the money. One girl ran away from home when she was 10 years old because the abuse was so bad. And she sold her body in exchange for food and for shelter, and that was better than what she was living with. There was a guy who was drafted when Vietnam came, and they took him and they went out to his farm. I didn't know they do this. And basically told him he needed to leave with them right now. He wasn't able to say goodbye to his parents. And I've always heard the words that we don't leave any man behind. And I never really thought about what that meant. But in Vietnam, I only know the TV versions, but we don't, I guess there were a lot of booby traps and a lot of things that just blew people to pieces. And his job at 19 was to pick up the pieces so that we don't leave any man behind. So he told me that he struggled with heroin for 30 years. And before I heard any of these stories, I would have thought, it's a choice. Just stop. At some point, no matter what we've been through, it's our choice to continue doing something. But I had never had any of the stories like that be part of my context of life or my experience. And I don't think it's fair to compare trauma, but at some point the trauma is so different than the trauma that I would have experienced in a much more normal life, even though there was some dysfunction there too. In the past, I would have thought, 30 years to get past your heroin addiction. And now I feel like I don't know that I could have done any better. I think of my son who was 16 and, if he was 19 in that situation, how could you do that without some kind of escape at that point? Now I feel like, wow, you conquered it after living through all that. His counselors can have him get past it and move on, but he sees those visions every single night. So he goes to bed every night afraid to fall asleep and needing to fall asleep. So every story that I hear changes everything I ever believed. And I used to think that if you work hard and save your money, you won't be homeless. And now I feel like homelessness could happen to anyone, including me, there, but for the grace of the universe go I. And I think it's safer for us if we think that if we work hard and save well, it won't happen to us, because then we have a way of believing that we're exempt, and we're not. But the more work I did, the more I just started seeing that everything I used to believe was not the way that I thought it was. So I wrote all these things on yellow paper, and there's piles of them over there, and each pile is a packet, like they're flip-flopped, so each one is a full packet. But just talking about kind of tying into the theme here, there's one packet that shows what you can do to make a difference if this topic happens to call to you, because now I feel like we're all friends and neighbors. And the biggest thing is just say hi. It doesn't matter if you have money to give or want to share money or things. Look someone in the eyes and say hi. Every person that I've done that to has said the smile and hello means more than anything I could have given them that was tangible. So there's packets if you want them.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Anita Owen with the United Nations Association, but I just wanted to remind you that this is the 70th year's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and our own Eleanor Roosevelt helped to spearhead that in the UN, and she was one of the few women there. And it's probably one of the most important things that has been done there with the help of the U.S. But I want you also to realize that the UN is very important in solving all of the different problems that we have here in the world that will affect us. And it's important that we, as a leading nation, support the UN and positive foreign policy solutions to all of the trials and tribulations the world faces. The U.S. has not been that supportive lately, so it's important that every one of you stands up to empower the UN to deal with all these problems, whether it's climate change, healthcare, and refugee problems, everything that the UN is working on. The U.S., our country, a leader in the world, has not even signed on to the Convention of the Rights of the Child. And it's because we as citizens haven't stood up and demanded that this happen. Every other country in the UN has signed on to the Convention of the Rights of the Child. So I want you to think about this, and in your life start working on us again becoming a leader in the world in setting up positive solutions to all of the problems. A leader in cooperatively working with the world. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Paul Wilson. I have two comments, really short. One regarding Rose Lewis. She was instrumental in starting the Thompson Patch Scholarship Fund. This is a scholarship fund for minority kids in the Salem Kaiser School District and Shumawa Indian School. These kids don't have good grades. They will not qualify for standard high-end scholarships. The scholarships that this fund passes out, which Rose was instrumental in starting, gives these kids a leg up after high school to get into trade school, to get through a semester or so of community college, on and on. Whatever can be done to get them a step beyond high school where they might not have been very successful. But the kids that we talk with, that we read their essays, they've overcome huge life challenges. And you name it, they've been through it. Many of them are immigrant kids. Many of them recently have had a couple of refugee kids, single moms, you name it. Anything that can go wrong in a kid's life. And these kids have shown the incentive to overcome that and get more education and give back to their community. So I just would like to make sure everybody knows about it. Rose is smiling, and please support the fund if you're ever asked for donations, please support it. The other thing that I would like to ask, just rhetorically for the community, is there anybody who doesn't believe that folks in our community need a place to live? They need shelter, no matter who they are or where they come from. It's just that simple. Rose would support an effort to house people who are down and out. And I think that's something that we should all be working toward. And it has zip to do with racial issues, immigrant issues, anything else. These folks are internal refugees. Many of them are just down on their luck. And we need, as a community, to stand up and figure out a way to help them out. That's sufficient. Thank you very much.
How's the microphone? Is my voice carrying? Good. My name is Barry Lee Coyne. I'm one of the producers on CCTV, and this unusual presentation is dedicated to the women of Salem. Welcome, sisters. Welcome, brothers. Let's celebrate our single mothers. A brand new concept, do not fear. Let Salem be the pioneer. We can ignite a special spark, a cool event in Bush Park. Moms panel raising their concerns, some solution no one spurns. Social agencies around, tents arranged like lost and found. Maybe free blood pressure tests to assure moms that keep their zest. A final touch, a talent show that single mothers really glow. May all folks in our audience support this cause, it's so immense. Now take a pause and let us pray for next year's Single Mother's Day. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Peterson. And I'm Pam Volk. And we recognize that racism is a problem in our society, and in order to make a good neighborly place for all people, we need to address not only structural issues in our society, but our own attitudes and biases that we may not be aware of. And so we're having at the Baha'i Center once a month on the third Sunday of the month what we call Conversations on Race, where we're looking into materials from a lot of different sources that help us understand some of the problems, and we're learning through our conversations and our sharing of experiences things that will help us to be better at treating all people the way they should be treated. And we invite you to join us.
Really? The discussions are led by a professor from Oregon State.
Yeah.
From Oregon State, and she's tireless at bringing to the discussion materials that I didn't even know about. It's eye-opening. I can remember the son of some friends of ours who's African American was living with us for about 6 months, and he shared a conversation he'd had with his dad. And I have sons, and as a mother, this really broke my heart. His dad was giving him instructions on what to do if he was ever stopped by a cop. And unfortunately, the town we lived in didn't have the wonderful relationship that we have here in Salem. But it was, this is how we want you to survive this encounter. And to think that you have to teach your children something, a totally different set of functioning
than I tell my kids. You know, there's just experiences that there's no way I'm going to be able to learn about unless I make a special effort. And that's what this program has really been for me.
So the third Sunday of each month from 2 to 4 at the Baha'i Center, which is on the corner of Cottage and State. Everyone is welcome. So the next one for this month is coming up this coming Sunday, the 15th. And you're all welcome. 2 o'clock, 2 till 4.
The entrance to the Baha'i Center is on Cottage. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Anna Olivia here again. I just wanted to share with you something that I've been going through all my life, and now it's coming out in a lot of stories of the parents and children. We work with Spanish-speaking immigrants, and it's now, you know, in schools it's about mental health. And I dropped out of school when I was 15 at North High in 1971 or 2, I think. And it was because my entire family was suffering from mental health issues. I also, you know, Richmond, where I was in elementary in '62, they thought I was the darkest child there, and I thought I was Mexican. I'm Italian or Sicilian, but it was so white back then. But anyway, the mental health thing is just a really big deal. I came from an educated family that was very poor because of mental health. There was so much dysfunction. So mental health has been a big deal to me, and I believe that everyone can find a functional life if they get the right treatment, and that's extremely hard to get. Right now we're suffering from a great big dearth of Spanish-speaking psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors. So anyway, I'm just really glad that the stigma has been getting, I don't know how to say it, it's been getting less, the stigma, and more of our parents in the Mexican community, they always tell me that normally it's a humongous stigma, but now the parents are coming forward with the stories of the trauma and the postpartum depression and the abuse and the things that are affecting them besides the issues that we always hear about, oh, you know, the education, and we're just talking about parent involvement. It's like, by the way, the family is suffering with all these other issues. So anyway, I'm just putting a plug in for mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have another person, so we're wrapping up. Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. Thanks everybody for being here. There's a forgotten hero that is running around amongst us and never gets noticed, generally female. That would be the caretaker of a vet that has any of what we call the catch-22 maladies. Asbestos, Agent Orange, moral injury. The VA does everything they can to kick us to the curb. They're brutal, they're ugly, they're not nice, and they externalize our care into Obamacare. I wouldn't be alive without Obamacare. My demographic is 82% dead 18 months after we report into the VA. You know, huh? Our spouses, they're left, our caretakers, spouses, whatever, they're left, no clue what's going on. The VA doesn't tell, they don't tell them what people like me generally are going to experience. I didn't have to. They're completely unprepared. I'm looking for a way to approach this problem. If anybody has thoughts, stop that. I'd love to hear them. I'm Sarah Vick on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you.
In 2019, International Human Rights Day has been challenged and charged with youth. It's been challenged for our youth to stand up. Why youth? Because it's the youth that participate and are the participants to rally and bring forward the call to sustain and the development for the crucial role in positive change, to continue what all of you have started, all of us have started, to continue the empowerment that we have seen in the Safe Schools for All, in the conversations that they have had within their own communities about breaking down those barriers and accepting each other as we start to talk about within our neighborhoods and welcoming each other. We see that in our youth. And I just want to say thank you so much for bringing me and allowing me to be here today as your moderator. Thank you. Susan.
Thank you very much. I think we did good. I hope you had a pleasant evening. I hope you learned some things. I know I did. And I want to thank a few people before we end tonight. One is Bill Hayden from our planning committee, Joyce Zook, who organized all the wonderful food, and Elsa Struble, who helped with the planning, and of course Gretchen Bennett from the city of Salem, who couldn't be here but did a lot of important work for us. If you saw me sitting there, I was on my phone. I wasn't chit-chatting or on Facebook. I was taking notes of everybody that spoke, and I hope that some of you took notes too. And if there's anything that you can do in response to the things that you heard tonight, I hope that you will take that away and take it back into your community. Salem Speaks Up has a presence on Facebook so that we just don't have a one-year event. We now have a place on Facebook where 360 days a year people can find out what's going on in their community, and we share events from other organizations. And one of the things that we'd like to do on our Facebook page is share stories. So if you go to Facebook and just search for Salem Speaks Up, you'll find us, and you can message me a story. We don't allow comments on our page because we don't want any of that flaming or anything, but you can share a story and it will be put forward with either a name or anonymous, but we want to share these stories all year round so that the community can hear from people. Because one of the most important things that Rose would say is people need to be listened to. They need to have a voice. They need to be heard. And so we want to carry on that commitment through our web page. So we did get a lot of good comments over here, and I thank you for that. And just in closing, I want to say that one of the things that I noticed today is that we're all seem to be on social media, and there's a lot of really bad things that people say to each other out there in the community. And recently we've had a lot of discussion about homelessness in our community, and people don't understand and so forth. But what I have enjoyed, and what I encourage you to do, that if you are on social media or in any kind of a social situation, maybe even one-on-one or whatever, is that we need to speak up. We need to voice our compassion, our caring, and our sense of community. And so when somebody gets into a situation where they're negative, they're anti-people, they're anti-humanity, and so forth, we need to speak up. That's something that we can do as individuals to help make the world and help make Salem a better place for all of us to live. So thank you all for coming.